And in this same year, the army of the Danes in England swore oaths to King Alfred upon the Holy Ring, which before they would not do to any nation. And they delivered to the king hostages from among the most distinguished men of the army, that they would speedily depart from his kingdom, and that by night they broke. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. In the centuries following the fall of Rome, England as a single entity did not exist. Migrating groups from the European continent, namely the Angles and the Saxons, established kingdoms in southern and eastern England. In the east, Danish raiders turned to Danish conquerors, and the Danelaw was established in the 9th century. Among the kingdoms of migrants to Great Britain, the West Saxons of Wessex gradually became the most powerful and were responsible for the restriction of the Danes to the region which became the Danelaw. Their most famous king, Alfred the Great, reigned from 886 to 899 and moved his capital to London. This was the first political shift which shaped England into the country we know today. The House of Wessex continued to rule England for nearly 2 centuries. The Danes were eventually driven from England, and the borders of the country stretched to near their present boundaries. For the first time, there was an England. Yet it would not endure. Ties to Scandinavia would continue, and England, Norway, and Denmark all fell under the rule of one king, Canute the Great. Canute married the widow of the English king Ethelred. When Canute died, his son Harold inherited the throne. Harold reigned for only 4 years before he too died, and the throne passed to his half-brother Harthacnut. Harthacnut too died without an heir, and yet another half-brother, the son of the long-dead Ethelred and Emma of Normandy, returned to the English throne. When King Edward reclaimed the English throne for the House of Wessex, England was in a state of political chaos. Powerful nobles called earls governed England under the oversight of the king, and threats from abroad still held the potential to bring England under Scandinavian rule. Edward, returning from exile from his mother's home in Normandy, relied upon his earls to maintain order during uncertain times. The most powerful of these earls in the middle of the 11th century was Godwin, Earl of Wessex. As the second most powerful man in England after King Edward, he controlled the southern part of the country and was a necessary ally should Edward wish to keep his crown. In pursuit of this aim, Edward agreed to wed Godwin's daughter Edith in 1045. Yet the two produced no children, and the succession of the House of Wessex still remained uncertain. Following the death of Godwin, his son Harold Godwinson became Earl of Wessex and assumed his father's role as the most powerful lord in England. He then became a likely choice to succeed Edward in the event of his death. Edward's legacy is one of piety, so much so that less than a century after his death, he was officially canonized as a saint in the Roman Catholic Church. Attached to this legacy of piety is the consideration that Edward may have been celibate. This was according to the absence of a biological heir. Whether his piety accounts for a lack of an heir or not, it did account for an enduring legacy of his reign, the Abbey at Westminster. Construction on the abbey began in the middle of his reign, and the building was consecrated on Childermas Day, or December 28th, 1065. Within 2 weeks, the king died of illness, plunging England into yet another succession crisis, one which would forever alter the course of England's history. Less than a year after the abbey's consecration, the line of Wessex had ended, and the first Norman king of England would be crowned in Westminster Abbey.